We woke up early on June 29th and said goodbye to the comforts of our motel. My dad dropped us off at our launch site, a foggy beach in Machiasport. We decided to wait until the fog lifted to launch. Eventually, we pushed off for the first time. On the water, we found conditions were better than we thought, and we had a quick paddle to Ram Island. This small, barren island was a memorable stop on our journey. Setting up camp in the fog on a big rock, listening to the sea swells, I remember feeling embraced by the wild energy of Maine's coast. I felt lucky knowing that I would be enveloped by this energy for 3 weeks. In January, I began dreaming of a kayaking expedition down the coast of Maine. Sea kayaking in Maine is where I developed my passion for kayaking and outdoor exploration as a teenager. I floated the idea to my college roommates and sea kayaking colleagues, Paige and Immo. Soon, we were working on broad logistics like finding kayaks to use and thinking about our respective schedules. We would be paddling along the Maine Island Trail, which is a collection of over 200 protected islands open to use by boaters up and down the coast of Maine. Think of these islands as designated resting stops along the coast, with boaters in charge of making their own routes depending on various factors. Islands are usually owned by towns, conservation groups, or private owners who decide to allow for respectful, low-impact camping and recreation on their land. It's truly a unique resource that is not broadly known in Maine or elsewhere.
And directly trail north of Inner Hardwood Island.
Okay. It's close to Seal Land.
On our third morning, we awoke to dense fog. We had a quick paddle into Jonesport, where we hit the general store and got water refills, a jar of Nutella, and a bottle of Coke. Shortly after our first trip to town, we arrived at Doyle Island. We hadn't originally planned to stay at Doyle, but we found out that there was a cabin we could use if we got permission, and with the foggy conditions, we decided to have a shorter day of kayaking and be able to stay in a cool cabin. Big shout out to Andrew, who we don't know, but who quickly responded to my texts and allowed us to stay in his old family cabin. The next morning, the fog lifted on Doyle, and we got on the water around 9:30. We paddled west the whole way and had some of our biggest crossings yet. In the afternoon, we got to Bois Boubert Island.
It's like this long. Have you seen them? No. They're like a gummy bear, but they're a rat that's this big.
You don't know that.
The weather on Bois Boubert was great, but there were an absurd amount of mosquitoes, so we played Catan in the tent.
It's a pancake morning today.
I try to keep at least a little bit for my wraps.
On day 5, we had great conditions. This is a shot of our massive crossing from Bois Boubert to the Scudic Peninsula. We camped at an abandoned campground that is available for use to sea kayakers only. And we were excited because there was a dumpster and a porta potty, which were pretty luxurious items for us at the time. After waking up, eating oatmeal, and drinking coffee, you pack down the tent, kitchen, food, and clothes into dry bags. Next, you carry the gear down to the launch point, then carry the light, empty boats down to the water and pack up the sealed hatches with the dry bags. With the appropriate paddling gear donned, you launch and say goodbye to last night's home. The paddling part is easy after all of that gear schlepping. On the water, you paddle, chit-chat, feel inspired by the speed of a ferry boat, drink water, eat snacks, and decide the plan for lunch. Eventually, you find a good beach to land on for lunch, which is a bit trickier when paddling along the cliffed-out coast of Mount Desert. You grab the big lunch sack out of Paige's front hatch and dump out the contents on a rock. Because it's a federal holiday, you celebrate by busting out the sardines, the fanciest thing you've got.
They're really not that offensive.
Then you stretch your legs and goof off while watching the tide creep up to where you had lugged your boats a half hour ago. Back on the water, paddling feels great thanks to the minerals and nutrients provided by the sardines, gummy candies, apple, electrolyte tablet, and spliff. You paddle for a few more hours, ducking out of strong winds at points, before cruising downwind to Little Crow, the finest island in the region. You land, unpack the boats, and set everything back up again, now 19 miles away from where you started.
They're making the movie. It's gonna be the most.
There's my friend Shippen, rowing back to his skip. He lives on an island right next door.
But
He nicely brought us water, and we caught up over some breakfast the next morning. The next morning, we paddled 10 miles from Little Crow to Bernard Harbor, where my grandparents have a house that we were going to spend a couple days at and rest up. This was the end of the first leg of our journey. And here's a photo of what we looked like when we landed.
Knowing there's a break coming up, that's made me sick.
Yeah.
The next day, we woke up rested and got to work packing up our rations for week 2.
Lacking a little something. You're packing a love pouch.
And she showed us pictures of her naked
she
body
didn't
covered
care?
in snake. Well, she learned to love them. She was very spiritual for her. There were drugs involved.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe.
You finish that, you can have another one.
Yeah.
Fueled up by pizza and ginger ale, we were back on the water in no time. Woo! My friends Ruby and Emmeline were joining the crew for leg 2. On July 7th, we departed from Bernard at 8:30 and had a quick paddle over to Big Baker. We got there around 1 p.m.
It's stationary. It's just.
Oh.
After many foggy shenanigans on Big Baker, we got back on the water.
Okay.
We had a foggy crossing over to Marshall Island where we had a nice long lunch.
How cool is that? Super cool.
This was the busiest seal rock we saw on our whole journey. Eventually, we found our home for the night on Harbor Island. Harbor Island had great vibes. We relaxed and explored, had a nice problem-solving session when our olive oil exploded, coating all of our dinner foods with oil. And most memorably, we enjoyed a top-notch sunset. Harbor was a top-tier stop for the whole trip. The next morning, we woke up pretty early and saw good visibility, so we pushed off around 8:30 and paddled into Stonington town.
It's not like the chai competition.
Yeah.
See how it now just seems like a woman will never be president ever.
Thoughts?
I was kind of seeing
Yeah.
Ruby?
Women can't because they're too emotional.
Is that your statement for the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, New York Times!
Spirits were very high after getting some treats in
Thank you,
Stonington
beach.
and enjoying a long, indulgent lunch. We paddled under the majestic Eagle Island lighthouse and quickly found our home for the night on Butter Island, which had this incredible beach and a really wonderful hike to a little viewpoint. Leaving Butter, we found calm seas. This seal was very interested in me,
I can hear him.
Yeah.
and we saw what we think might have been an outward bound sailboat.
They're right here, guys. Don't freak out. Skinless, boneless, smoked sardine fillets. Brought you from the same one. We're gonna see you.
It looks like a movie.
This is what it looked like when we crossed Penobscot Bay. Our crossing was super successful and easy, and we arrived to Monroe Island with lots of daylight left. We quickly determined that this was actually called Tick Island and that there were more ticks than any of us had ever seen in our lives. After escaping from Tick Island, we had a quick paddle and eventually made an impromptu stop at McClune's Lobster Shack.
I love when you go to clean porta potty.
This is all I have. This is all I get. This is all I. Some of us never had tofurkey.
What are you eating, bitch?
I don't think she's gonna fall in. I don't see that happening. But I don't know how she's not gonna do fine.
I got it. I still don't think she's gonna fall in. Oh, she's getting really close to falling in. I don't think she will.
No.
No, she's got it.
Just wait till we stop yelling.
Emma was happy to provide some entertainment to the tourists at the Lobster Shack. The sun came out on the afternoon, and we enjoyed a wonderful hike through the woods on the mainland, actually, where we were camping, and found this majestic moss forest. The next morning, we paddled through the fog to CV Island.
Where are we bringing our shit?
Best miter site ever.
In the 1970s, Emmeline's grandparents signed a lease to take over a foreclosed island off the coast of Maine.
What do you gotta say, Ruby?
I'm just taking it all in.
CV activities included tractor tours, hanging out inside, packing up our rations for the third week of our trip, taking some artsy photographs in the fog, and a lobster bake. We left CV and were transported to the mythical land of Bar Island. It was a strange place, and we had a great time being silly in the fog. next morning, we were faced with some of our strangest conditions of the whole trip. It was hot and steamy, but we were still enclosed in a deep fog for the beginning of the paddle. Eventually the fog broke and we ran into our first other sea kayaking group we saw the whole trip. They were on a day paddle, but it was so nice to say hi. We paddled under a bridge and through this weird slip, and then had a good time hanging out at Spectacle Island, which was one of our favorite spots. Here's our crew landing at Popham Beach.
Surfing into Popham.
This was our biggest paddle of the trip, and it was a really hard day, so there's not much footage. Here is our crew leaving Raspberry Island for a short paddle in the fog, of course. This guy's skiff said Seahawks on it. That was pretty cool. And then we paddled under a few bridges, and we were in Casco Bay.
Whale boat.
We got to Whaleboat early in the day and had lots of time on our hands, so we made a lunch stop and made pancakes on the same island that we were going to be sleeping on. We watched thunderstorms roll by on the mainland, and I found a cloud that looked a lot like the island we were staying at. On our penultimate paddle, we woke up to a clear day, and it was kind of windy. This was actually our most challenging paddle in terms of wind conditions of the whole trip, but it was only about 6 miles long, and we completed it in 90 minutes or so. Seeing the skyline of Portland from the tower on Jewel meant our trip was almost over. For myself, this was a daunting thought. The peaceful routine of the last 3 weeks was ending, and I didn't know when an adventure of this scale would happen next. We didn't have many goals before this trip, but I think I can speak for the team in saying that the adventure was a huge success.
It's day 3 and we finished the Maine Island Trail.
What? It was so easy. The coast just ran out. What's next?
Fog!
Whee!
Let's get it with the gator.
Semester school from a Sounds pretty Cali. Oh my god, you can put it on the house. Get some footy. The page in the fog.
It's useless.
We didn't go particularly fast, but we were out there, enjoying every moment of the lifestyle.
Tent broke.
On our last night, our tent pole actually snapped, so our tent didn't work. Timing is everything, I guess. Paige and Emma slept out, but I couldn't handle the bugs and created this cocoon. It was actually pretty nice. And here's the first logbook entry I wrote on the trip before we pushed off from Jewel. We made fast time, maybe our fastest paddle of the trip, with our lightest boats of the trip, to South Portland, where my dad and family picked us up.
You guys know where you're going? So the pier, the short pier you can see, just around that.
There were some sea kayakers putting on around the time we landed, and they actually didn't believe us when we told them we had just done the Maine Island Trail.
Too easy.
They didn't even believe us. It was that easy.
I know, I was like, I think we laughed. I said, no, this is real.